Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, July 8th, 2025 regular business meeting of the Olympia City Council. For the record, we have a quorum with Councilmember Cooper excused tonight. So with that, I need a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of the agenda as published signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have an agenda. Our first item tonight is special recognition, a proclamation recognizing July as Parks and Recreation Month. And we have a proclamation reading by Councilmember Vanderpool.
Whereas parks and recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Olympia, and whereas parks and recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, and whereas parks and recreation has an opportunity to create a sense of belonging for all those who engage in our services and facilities, and whereas parks and recreation positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being and reducing illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, Alzheimer's, and whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing spaces for popular sports, hiking trails, fitness programs, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community and serves as a critical infrastructure necessary for advancing climate goals. And whereas our community has constantly and graciously supported parks and recreation services through 2 voted measures and an active fee-based participation in use of our activities, reservable facilities, and whereas the U.S. Department of Representatives has designated July as a Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas the City of Olympia recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, be resolved that in the City of Olympia, that the Olympia City Council does therefore proclaim July is recognized as Parks and Recreation Month in the City of Olympia, signed in the City of Olympia, Washington, this 8th day of July, 2025, Olympia City Council. Dante Payne, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Vanderpool. And so now I'd like to call forward Scott River, who is our Director of Recreation and Facilities, for a presentation this evening. Hi, Scott.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Payne and members of the City Council. For the record again, my name is Scott River, Director of Recreation and Facilities for the Parks, Arts, and Recreation Department. So as you just so eloquently helped me lay out, July is National Parks and Recreation Month, and today we are here to celebrate your Parks, Arts, and Recreation Department. I'm going to take a little liberty with today's presentation in hopes a different approach from previous years will be refreshing. So in doing so, I'm going to give you a small behind-the-scenes look at some people that make our department move, and hopefully in a way that you'll learn something and also get a chuckle or two. This year's national theme is Build Together, Play Together. And it's an amazing theme for this presentation because in Olympia, we don't do anything alone. Many of you were at the opening of the Grass Lake Nature Trail, and if you haven't taken that walk yet, just trust me, you're missing out on a nice, easy, flat trail with so much native beauty, it'll make your heart soar and your eyes heal. Yelm Highway and Armory Creative Campus continue to move through major phases. We have sponsored 4 cultural events so far this year with 4 more to go. Our summer camps are off and running as strong as ever. New plinths are all out on Percival awaiting your votes. And we've hosted 550 games on our city ball fields in addition to 18 weekend tournaments with more to come throughout the summer. So I mean, come on, we have selected those as highlights, but there are so many other things our staff is doing that are amazing and awesome. And today, I want to bring forward 6 employees that are helping us build together so the community can play together. And these 6 do it largely without fanfare, preferring to stay behind the scenes, which is why I'm sharing their brief stories with you today. It's a calculated gamble. I hope it lands well. First up is Veronica Hampton Long. She is our payroll pilot and our ledger legend. Veronica is based out at Squaxin Park. She's a key source in supporting a 7-day-a-week operation for our crew, whether that is phone support, technical support, or connecting staff with appropriate resources. When it comes to payroll and bill paying, she is highly regarded for steering our processes smoothly every time. And if you know anything about Parks and Recreation payroll, we make it about as complicated as possible with our seasonal staffing, flex schedules, multiple shifts, and emergency overtime. She's a true icon in the land of numbers. Kevin Erickson is our summer camp concierge and game giver. He's a true jack of all trades, taking care of staff and camper needs with class and poise throughout the busy summer camp season, to the point that some campers consider him a local celebrity when he walks in. You'll find him running around town to various campsites, both putting out fires or starting fires, whichever the situation calls for in the moment. When he's not out and about, you'll find him helping to manage our camp wait lists to make sure that every available spot gets filled by a willing camp participant. Outside of the camp season, Kevin is instrumental in working with our Ole on Ice contractor to cover small and large operating details, works the gyms for our variety of adult sports, and will even lead occasional outdoor adventures. Dan Morrison, our guest space guru and Sparkle Ops. Dan is our senior maintenance employee at the Olympia Center, and he's been nicknamed the Whirling Dervish for good reason. We literally have to slow him down for fear his sprinter mentality is in conflict with the marathon each day can become. Dan ensures the Olympia Center, Harbor House, and surrounding areas always sparkle with polish, and he models taking initiative with the best of our staff. He's also a fan favorite of our customers and senior visitors, always willing to talk Seahawks and nostalgia, even when he's out of breath from his breakneck pace. Jenny Harris, our registration rock star and booking boss. She is one of our customer service center employees at the Olympia Center, well known for always getting people signed up for recreation programs with a flair and a style all her own, as well as her confidence that she provides our customers while navigating their facility rental requests. It's contagious for all staff, truly making everyone around her better merely by her presence. And finally, she's a seasoned air traffic control specialist, making sure customers and coworkers are always pointed in the right direction. Jenny is truly representative of the high-quality care provided by our entire customer support team. So I got a couple more here, and then I'm going to tie it all together for you. Joey Moore, our diamond doctor and tournament director tamer. Joey is our lead for all things athletic field maintenance. There's not a ball field that Joey can't fix, mend, or even bring back to life. His can-do attitude provides the necessary leadership for his crews to build so others can play. And when play happens, Joey manages to keep our tournament directors and league hosts happy through the most high-stress moments. He does all of this in a way that properly mentors and models proper priorities and customer service for our seasonal employees, many who work incredibly independently otherwise. Finally, Diane Utter, our permit pathfinder and collaboration cartographer. She's a project engineer and works on a variety of projects throughout the year. Projects get complicated quickly, as I'm sure you all are aware, and Diane always finds a way through the paperwork jungle, which can require extremely high levels of detail and technical work. Her perseverance, even during the most challenging moments, seems to always land the department in a space that allows us to move forward at the least, and many times enhances the project from the original dream. She is authentically a problem solver and collaborator, consistently pulling people together with a unique personal touch that makes others feel good to be in her presence. So, why did I do that? Well, I chose to highlight our employees this year, partly because I was kind of tired of what we've done every year with the other formulas, and I was hopeful that you would also appreciate a little bit of a mix-up there. But also, I just thought the theme, building together and playing together, really allowed for us to honor some people behind the scenes that are doing so much work that helps the rest of our community access our wonderful services. I'm honored to be able to highlight these low-key legends as representative of the entire Parks, Arts, and Recreation team. They represent the love, integrity, and balance required to utilize all of the infrastructure that leads to our services. which includes using our software programs to connect people to programs and services, maintaining safe and clean parks and facilities so people can host celebrations. They support other members of their team selflessly by making sure everyone has what they need. They monitor budgets so we can timely and accurately pay vendors and staff. It literally takes all of it to create the high-quality services of our community regularly. Thank you to the Olympia City Council, our executive leadership, and most importantly, our community for the ongoing support and engagement for all things Parks, Arts, and Recreation, and thank you for recognizing July as Parks and Recreation Month in Olympia.
Thank you, Scott. Any comments from the dais? Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Hey, way to go. Way to be a leader. That is so wonderful. I actually usually enjoy all the presentations that I've heard from the parks staff. And I also enjoyed this switch up too. I like your use of the low-key legends. Yeah, and so these are unfortunately not people that we get to see all the time, right? Well, I some of them look familiar to me, but for instance, like I love the Harbor House. It's my favorite space to rent out. I think it's just very unique, and so to know, like, you know, who's taking care of that space and who deals with our really kind of rampant registration when it comes up for all the recreation. That's nice to match a face to those things, and so really appreciated the switch up your presentation tonight, and I think that's very in line with the theme, right? And so all of these great park and arts amenities because of these fine folks and more. So thanks so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments? I couldn't agree more. I had a really great time seeing all the folks that came out to the Grass Lake Nature Trail ribbon cutting. That was a wonderful afternoon. And like I said, it's right in my backyard, so I get to go there more often than I do some of our other spaces just because it's literally right next to my house. But I am really grateful to our staff who, the work that they do makes this place livable. And it makes it enjoyable to live here, and it's such an important part of the work that they do is to boost the morale in our community, and you and your department are part of that. So I thank you so much for your service, and I have the proclamation here which recognizes July as Parks and Recreation Month.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Okay, so we will move on to agenda item 3A, which is a public hearing related to the proposed issuance by the City of Olympia of its limited tax general obligation bonds, 2025B. The proposed bonds are one of more series of bonds to be issued for financing of the construction and expansion of the Hands-On Children's Museum, totaling a maximum principal amount not to exceed $25 million. The city will use the proceeds of the bonds to finance the design, construction, and development and improvement of an expansion of the Hands-On Children's Museum, to capitalize interest and to pay related costs of issuance. Projects include financing and/or reimbursing the cost of designing, constructing, installing, and equipping the expansion project, which will include an early learning center, a new traveling exhibit gallery and event space, and a new tween STEM lab and children's culinary program. The museum is owned by the city and operated by the Hands-On Children's Museum, a nonprofit 501c3 corporation. So at this time, I'd like to invite our finance director, Mike Givens, to share an overview of the plan before we open the public hearing tonight. Hi, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. It's a pleasure to present this exciting opportunity for the Hands-On Children's Museum. Just to share a few facts. Hopefully this is a chance also for you and our public to have any questions answered about this issuance of bond. We have myself here along with our bond counsel, so I think we can answer any questions that you might have. So by way of a little review, in addition to what you read, Mayor, the background is that the museum opened in 2012. It serves as a destination museum for national and international visitors. It's an expansion which includes a property purchase that will double the exhibit space from 12,000 to 24,000 square feet. It's a $30.6 million budget. This is utilizing the public facility district funds, and I think that's an important clarification to make, that these bonds will be repaid through that dedicated sales tax as part of the public facility district. So I know there's been some question as to where that will come from, and it does come from that dedicated source to be used for this. There's also some federal and state and private grants and donations that the Hands-On Children's Museum has obtained for this. So the bond issuance, it's a $20.5 million issuance over a 30-year term. $1.5 million annual debt payment is what we're estimating. It's secured by the PFD funding, as I mentioned, through that dedicated sales tax. There's also, for the benefit of the city, a set aside by the Hands-On Children's Museum in case of a shortfall. So I think that would come into play if for some reason sales tax revenue fell. There's a bit of a set aside there that has some reliance for the city. I think that ultimately these bonds are being issued on the full faith and credit of the city of Olympia. So obviously we step in and make any payments, but that partnership with the Hands-On Children's Museum in the event that that should happen, I think is important to note.
Mike?
Yes.
Before you continue, we're going to pause because I'm being told that we're having some technical difficulties with Zoom.
Okay.
So those who are participating can't hear you,
Okay.
and are not able to comment once we open the hearing. So we're going to go ahead and recess for 15 minutes to see if we can get the technical issues resolved, and then we'll return. And we can come back early if we get it resolved in that time. Okay. Thank you. They were able to get those technical issues resolved in under 5 minutes. That's impressive, so thanks. And we'll go ahead and, Mike, if you wouldn't mind, why don't you take it from the top in case there were folks that weren't
Happy
able to
do
hear?
that.
Yeah,
Let me back up
thank you.
here. Okay. Here we go. For the record, Mike Giffens, Finance Director. So to review why we're here tonight and to answer questions that members of the public might have and just a review for everyone, we're here to issue tax-exempt bonds for the expansion of the Hands-On Children's Museum. So this is some background on the museum, just as a review for everyone. When it opened back in 2012, that it's a destination for national and international visitors. The expansion includes a property purchase and doubling the exhibit space from 12,000 to 24,000 square feet. There's a $30.6 million budget for the expansion. It's part of the public facility district funds. And as I pointed out before, that's dedicated sales tax revenue that has to go towards these projects in either for the rec facility in Lacey or our Hands-On Children's Museum in Olympia. So I know there's been some questions about, you know, where's this money coming from? And that's the dedication of that revenue to make the payments on the bonds, the principal and interest. The Hands-On Children's Museum has also secured other funding through grants, both private, state, and federal, and then through donations. So that's what is encompassing this budget to expand the museum. The bond issuance is a limited tax general obligation bond issuance for $20.5 million. They're issued over a 30-year term. We're estimating that there'll be approximately $1.5 million in annual debt payment. That's estimated at this time. I want to assure members of the public and council we've been spending a lot of time with our advisors and bond counsel to make sure everything is correct and that we're well planned going into this issuance of bonds. It's secured by the Public Facility District funding. As I just mentioned, that's funding secured through 2058. So we know that's in place for this. I mentioned earlier that the Hands-On Children's Museum is, for the benefit of the city, providing a set-aside in case of a shortfall in that sales tax revenue that is part of the Public Facility District. As I pointed out before, we're issuing the bonds on the full faith and credit of the city of Olympia, but we have that kind of backstop, if you will, of the generosity of the Hands-On Children's Museum for the set-aside. So the next steps in the process, we're having a TEFRA hearing, which I'm sure everyone knows what that means, so I wrote it out here. It's part of federal law that we have a Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act hearing so that members of the public have a chance to weigh in on this should they wish to. So it's, I think, a testament to being open and transparent as a public agency. The bond ordinance will also be considered by council this evening on your consent agenda. We're working to get a Public Facilities District Board meeting scheduled for August. The rating agency will have a presentation in August, and we're targeting September for the bond sale and then for us to have those proceeds in the city of Olympia's bank. So those are the next steps in the process. And I'm here to answer questions. We also have bond counsel online should you or members of the public have any questions for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Are there any comments or questions from the council? All right, seeing none. I do believe this is your first presentation to us as our new finance director, so congratulations on joining the ranks of presentation veterans.
Thank you.
All right, so we're now going to move on to the public hearing portion of this item. This public hearing is being conducted today pursuant to the requirements of the Federal Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982, as amended by the Tax Reform Act of 1986, together referred to for purposes of this hearing as TEFRA. and embodied in Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended. TEFRA requires that in order for the interest of the proposed bonds to be exempt from federal income tax, the bonds in the proposed project must be approved by the applicable representative of such governmental unit, in this case, the City Council of the city, after a public hearing following the reasonable public notice. Notice of this public hearing was posted on the city's website on June 30th, 2025, and remained posted through today's date. So we do have a few folks that are signed up for the public hearing in person as well as remotely. So at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. You do have 3 minutes, unlike public comment. You have 3 minutes for your comments in a public hearing. So at this time, I'm going to open the hearing on the plan of finance for issuance of the City of Olympia of the one or more series of tax-exempt obligations to finance capital improvements to the Hands-On Children's Museum. Okay, and it looks like we have 2 folks that are signed up, or excuse me, 3 folks signed up in person. We have an Alec Deaton, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Allie? Okay, and Allie, did you mean to sign up for the public hearing or public comment? Okay, perfect, thank you. Please approach the podium.
Hi, my name is Allie. I'm known at the Children's Museum as Teacher Allie. I've been working there for 6 years, and I started volunteering in 2010. Back then, the museum was much smaller. It was near the Capitol campus. And as I was volunteering there, I just heard a lot of excitement about the new building of the museum. And it's so awesome to be now a staff member and have survived the COVID shutdowns that we all faced, especially for early childhood education, and to continue working there and be a part of the expansion. I'm one of the culinary educators, and I've been working hard on teaching cooking classes. We have a lot of struggles teaching in the spaces that we have because they're multi-use rooms, and we don't even have enough electricity to run 2 blenders in the same room at the same time. So to teach a class of 16 kids how to cook is challenging, and we're so excited to have the space to do so. In my camp classroom, right now we can see the empty lot that will become the future museum expansion. So to be able to sit there with the kids and dream of what will be in the next few years is wonderful. And that's all.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on our list we have, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this, Grace Gliati? Okay. Well, please correct me when you get to the mic. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Grace Golightly, and I moved to Olympia 3 years ago. When we got here, we didn't know anybody. Our family was lost and we were struggling, and we found the Children's Museum. My daughter did 2 years of preschool there, and it was beyond impactful for our family. And we loved it so much that I actually am now a staff member at the Children's Museum, and it has brought community to our life in a way that I never knew we would ever have. And now that I work there, I get to talk to other members of the community that visit our museum, and I get to see the impact that the Hands-On Children's Museum has on them. It's very important for our community. It's the one place I know that my family can go, no matter what mood we're in, and we can be ourselves and we can be safe. We are definitely running out of space, and I would love to see the expansion happen. The Children's Museum means more to me than I can really even express, and to my family and the families that I see that visit us. And I hope that these bonds pass so we can have a larger building and continue to provide services to more families.
Thank you, Grace. Okay, and next we have on our list Patty Belmonte.
Good evening, Mayor Payne and council members. Patty Belmonte, CEO of the Children's Museum.
I know that you just got a briefing, and I just wanted to emphasize a few points because we know that there were some questions from the public. In 2006, the museum was selected as one of 2 Public Facilities District projects in Thurston County, along with the RAC in Lacey. As a PFD project, our facility construction was paid for by a combination of private contributions that we raised along with those Public Facilities District funds. To qualify for these funds, we must demonstrate the ability to draw out-of-town visitors and stimulate economic benefit to our region. Since opening our permanent home in 2012, Hands-On has grown to become a nationally recognized early learning destination, serving about 300,000 visitors a year, and it is a treasured amenity for our community. As your PFD partner, we cover annual operating and maintenance costs, and we ensure that more than 130,000 low-income and moderate-income families have access to the museum. Now we have the exciting opportunity to expand our facility to meet that growing demand by taking advantage of the extension of PFD funding that can only be used for our project and will pay for those bonds that are the subject of the hearing tonight. The city gains the asset without investing their own funds. This partnership and the PFD bonding mechanism is a significant win for children and families in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes those who are signed up in advance. So we'll turn it over to those who are here virtually, beginning with Esther Cronenberg.
It does not appear that Esther is signed in.
Okay. We'll move on to our next person and see if Esther joins us. What about Lee Reiner?
Lee is also not signed in.
Okay. Well, it is customary for us during a public hearing to open it up for those who are present in the chambers who are not signed up in advance, who wish to testify on this issue in the hearing. So is there anyone in the audience present this evening that wishes to testify in this hearing? Going once, going twice. Okay. All right. Susan, is it still the case that our virtual commenters are not present?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, at this time, I'm going to close the hearing on the plan of finance of issuance by the City of Olympia of one or more series of tax-exempt obligations to finance capital improvements to the Hands-On Children's Museum, and it is now 6:34. Okay, so please note that on tonight's consent agenda, an approval of an ordinance authorizing the issuance by the City of Olympia of one or more series of tax-exempt obligation or the bonds not to exceed $25 million to finance capital improvements for the expansion of the Hands-On Children's Museum, and approving other related matters will be considered first and final reading on tonight's agenda. Okay, so thank you very much. We will move on to public comment. We do have some folks signed up here in person as well as online. Just a few housekeeping rules before we begin. There's a clock to my right, your left here on the wall. Unlike public hearings, you have 2 minutes for your comments under public comment. If you do not finish your comments in the 2 minutes allotted, feel free to email the remainder of them to the City Council. We are in an election season, so please refrain from expressing your support or opposition to a candidate or ballot measure at the federal, state, or local levels. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Looks like we have a number of folks signed up in person and some virtual. So I'll go ahead and call a few names so you can get ready and know that you're next. So first we have Morgan Baker, followed by Damia Burling.
Hi, my name is Morgan Baker, and I'm here on behalf of myself and my neighbors to ask that the City of Olympia put its money where its pamphlets are. We received this pamphlet in the mail. It educates residents of our city on good water stewardship and conservation. And in fact, the city takes water conservation so seriously that to receive a rebate for a water-efficient toilet, one must buy a toilet that supersedes the EPA's rating. And yet, I and about 200 of my working-class neighbors are under threat from fines from our HOA over brown grass during a federally recognized drought. I emailed the city council about this issue last year and received exactly one response. It was a, "We'll get back to you." You didn't, but I kept it up, and I've linked arms with people who are pushing at the state level for tighter leashes on HOAs that would see green grass no matter the weather and mandatory pesticide use no matter the habitat. And I've also done my homework. RCW 6438057 uses firm language to describe what HOAs may not do during an ecology-issued drought emergency, but leaves gray area regarding intent outside of these issuances, utilizing language like unreasonable and infeasible. These are subjective terms that leave the door open for abuse of the legislature's intent and residents facing $400 and $600 water bills, like me and my neighbor respectively faced during our last billing cycles. I will not be doing that again. I have with me today a proposal for the city to edit and adopt. It is one that will close the gap of interpretation. No one should be fined for allowing the most useless plant in existence to go naturally brown at any point, but especially not when much of our state is facing a drought emergency. We should not wait on ecology to tell us to conserve water. Water knows no geopolitical boundary, and its scarcity is only becoming more noted as our climate changes and droughts worsen. I am asking you to do the right thing for water, but I am also asking you to do the right thing for your people. And I have a proposal in writing if you would like it.
Thank you so much. You can come up and hand it to us. Thank you.
I also have a copy of the RCW if you want it. Okay.
That would be great, and we'll make sure that we get those copies around. Thank you so much. Okay, next we have Damia Burling, followed by Judge Dave Larson.
Just give me 1 second to pull up my paper.
You may begin.
Go ahead.
Okay, I come here to the city council tonight because I have a very, really big issue. I have currently these court orders, and the Olympia Police Department has noted several times that these orders are optional when they are not. Under RCW 7.105.450, law enforcement is mandated to enforce any court orders such as vulnerable adult, sexual assault, stalking, or DV, Canadian domestic violence orders or foraging, or any order under Title 9A. And law enforcement has multiple times told me that I have no probable cause for my order. I had a sergeant say to me that they're going to contact the court and that they're going to ask the Honorable Judge R. Mamello, to reverse her decision on the protection order that I have right here in my hand, and as well as the noncompliance of the weapon surrender from the respondent, which is right here as well. And they have told me multiple times that because I'm autistic, that they have no reason and no obligation to ensure my safety. This person has also tried to break into my apartment, left his face print on my window, and has constantly harassed me, targeted me, threatened me, and has weaponized the management company. And the management company is also practicing without a realtor broker's license that is required under the RCWs as well. So I asked the city council to work on enforcing accountability with the Olympia Police Department, and I also have to work on my amended version, but there is a pending federal lawsuit with Ms. Parker as one of the defendants. So I will get that served as soon as possible. Thank you, and may you guys have a wonderful night.
Thank you. So I'll just say for anyone that might be newer to public comment, if you are hoping to receive any, there's going to be a lot of comments or a lot of topics for public comment tonight. So if you're hoping to receive possibly any response from the council, please do stick around. You may or may not have that response. Thank you. With that, we have Judge Dave Larson, and then followed by Courtney Marie Holthouse.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm not here on behalf of the Council of Independent Courts. I'm here on my behalf. I've been doing this for about 16 years, starting with my own court. When our court was under attack in 2009, there was nobody there to help. So I made it my mission to go around the state anytime a court was challenged to help. And it's helped in multiple cities, and most cities keep their courts after they hear all the facts. I sat in the same seat you did, but as a school board member, you know, kind of the fire hose of information and try to make sure you're making the right decision. So what I did personally is develop those 2 rules I talked about at the last meeting I was at. Disagreement's an opportunity, not a threat, and it's more important to do right than to be right. Because when you're resistant to disagreement, you usually want to be right. When you're looking for disagreement, you usually want to do right. And all of my comments to you have been intended to inform and not attack. But ultimately, I just want to make sure that you have all the information and your public has all the information to make the right decision for your city. When you're confronted with the issue of selling the court's property, you had a choice of keeping, when you couldn't afford to provide a new court, of keeping that, of not selling the property and keeping the court, or selling the property and then finding a different way to deal with it. You made your choice, and we are where we are, and multiple things have been proposed. It's ironic that tonight, and I love the idea of the Children's Museum, and it's a different fund and everything else. It's ironic tonight that the issue of issuing bonds was addressed with the Children's Museum. But one of the proposals was to do exactly that, reach out to the voters to build a courthouse, and that's not even mentioned in your staff report, along with other proposals that allowed you to keep your court, allowed you to maintain control of the budget. And I get to go home when I'm done. So the fact that a lot of my ideas were disrespected doesn't matter. I get to go home. The folks that live in this community have to live with those things. When you have the open-ended budget in 2 years, when you don't know how much it's going to cost you for court services, they're going to have to live with your decision. I just ask you to do what's right and make the right decision for long-term and not just this short-term crisis that you're in. And again, the offer to be involved in any way to help
Thank you, Judge
you
Larson.
is ongoing. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Courtney Marie Holthouse, and then that'll conclude our in-person. We'll move to virtual.
Hi, I'm Courtney Marie Holthouse, federal pro se plaintiff, 29-year-old PhD student against Multi-Care Lacey Emergency, Providence St. Peter's Hospital, Tumwater Police Department, and Washington State Department of Corrections, my former employer. I'm here tonight because when I tried to raise a serious public safety concern to the Washington State Department of Corrections, I wasn't protected, I was punished. I asked why repeat sex offenders, including those with child victims, were being released into the community with free housing vouchers. Meanwhile, people with no criminal record are sleeping in their cars, dying on wait list, or getting evicted while waiting for Section 8 that never comes. When I brought this up, I was told by management essentially, we don't make the rules, we just follow them. That's not a policy, that's a cop-out. Department of Corrections isn't just a middleman. They are a correctional agency. If they see danger and say nothing, they are complicit. After I spoke up, the retaliation began. Very slowly, as it often does. And it all started because I asked a question that made them uncomfortable. Why are violent repeat offenders getting free housing while vulnerable people are left to lose everything? I brought the truth to DOC, and they tried to erase me. So now I'm bringing it here. I've been told to report all the crimes that happened to me to police, but they haven't really helped me. So here's my report, right here, right now. I will respectfully leave it with staff at the end of my comment for the chief to receive, because this time it's on camera. You can either take me seriously or show everyone you don't care on film. Thank you. And I'd like to give this to you guys.
Yeah, We have to see that Debbie Sullivan, Assistant City Manager, is coming to get that report from you. Thank you. All right, so we will move to virtual public comment now. We have 2 up for virtual public comment. First, I see Judge Pam Nagira.
They are traveling.
Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. I considered whether to speak tonight, and against my best judgment, I still am doing it. Unfortunately, it feels like the city is continuing with this process of entering the interlocal agreement, completely not listening to my own advice, to the advice of other judges in similar situations and positions, to the desires, wishes, and opinions of court staff, to positions placed by a multitude of community members, by the goals set by reimagining public safety, and truly every single member of the community that have come and expressed an opinion about this topic. We have done our best to show to you how this is naive, how it will be financially unreasonable and longer term, more expensive and riskier to the city. We have shown how it will be a waste of resources to the city and its residents. And we have continued to show and provide you with every information we possibly can. When in exchange, the information from the city has been protected, barriered, and unfortunately safeguarded against true sharing of information. For instance, the reports from the architect with the true numbers of what the cost of a relocation of a court would be, they were not allowed to be shared with me and with others. So again, it's just very unfortunate that there is not that same respect and level of responsibility to the public and for what our branches of government stand. So again, I hope you've reviewed the articles, letters being sent to you, because there is a lot at stake. I believe my time is up.
Thank you. Next, we have Bruce Silverman.
They are traveling. It appears they're refusing to move over.
Okay. Well, with that, public comment has concluded.
Mayor Pro Tem, my apologies. They have just moved over.
Okay. Welcome back, Bruce. When you're ready.
Hello, I am Bruce Silverman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I spoke with the Land Use Committee a few days ago regarding the proposed changes to zoning laws in order to accommodate allowing more residents to be able to own homes in Olympia. And I was told that my specific comments are best addressed before the City Council, because they're the ones that ultimately vote and decide upon zoning issues. I live in the South Capitol neighborhood, where one residential home, zoned residential, has been, after another, has been converted into an office building, depriving residents of an opportunity to have a home these office buildings, of which there are approximately 18 now in the South Capitol neighborhood, are operated only as businesses, only during legislative session, and are vacant most of the rest of the year. The house next door to mine, which is owned and operated by an absentee landlord who is an attorney in Bothell, again, only rents it out as an office building during legislative session. The grounds look like it's an abandoned home that degrades our neighborhood to have this appearance, and it also deprives people of the opportunity to have a family home. When I asked the owner of the property to at least upgrade the appearance of the property, I was threatened with a legal action if I publicly describe the outward appearance of how they are maintaining their home. And I think I would mention that many of us have complained publicly to the city of Olympia and have not received any response in terms of why zoning law is not enforced. And I would like to know what are the drivers behind the anti-neighborhood policy and the failure to enforce residential housing code. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Mayor. That concludes public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any comments from the dais? Councilmember Madrone.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Morgan. Appreciate you bringing the proposal. I apologize that you never got a response to an email that you sent last year. We are working on our processes so that we can make sure that every constituent gets a response that's, gives you the information that you need. So I encourage you to email this because I don't see contact information on it, and we can make sure that you do get a response. First blush on this, I don't think that we have authority over HOAs. I think that rests with the legislature, but I'm willing to, dig into this and see if there is something that can be done at the city level. HOAs can do really wonderful things for a community, but they can also do detrimental things, as you have pointed out. But one of our challenges with the level of government that we're at is we typically don't have authority over them in the same way that the legislature does. And just looking over the RCW here, I do think that this does rest with the state. But like I said, email us your proposal because then we can make sure that you do get a response and be able to dig into this a little bit more. So thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Councilmember Gilman.
Thank you. I hope that we'll have staff follow up with each of these questions. And in particular, the South Capitol lobbyist houses are ones that we've looked at before. We've had code enforcement present, and I would be glad to have an update because the number of houses converting to business use or nominally having an intern stay there sometimes has been increasing. So that's of real interest. And something that Ms. Baker said, besides wanting to strengthen the RCW, was that a city might have rules about watering during certain seasons. And I know there are banners hanging over the main drags in Lacey that talk about odd day, even day. And I don't know if that's a requirement or a recommendation, but I would be interested to learn more about what we might do besides handing out flyers that say I'm dormant or with the don't water in the summertime. If we have an option to create schedules or amounts of irrigation that are allowed, so I'm interested in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I am very interested in looking into, just that topic that you brought forward, Morgan. Thank you so much. And then also Bruce Silverman. I'm not sure what we can do about that, but like Councilmember Gilman said, it is something that we've noticed, and it's something that I'm interested in taking up and at least talking more with staff and my colleagues. And then as well, for comments that we got by Damia Burling, I wonder if we might have staff step into the lobby and follow up. That would be great. Okay.
Thank you. Additional comments? Councilmember Vanderpool.
Yeah, I also would like to say I appreciate this deeply. I would want to know, and I will also, if once to get the email, I would also like to see how this goes running through legal and see how, what we can and cannot do and what other cities are doing around this issue. Because if other cities are trying to do it and other cities are doing it in Washington State, then we certainly probably can try. And then the other part about South Capitol neighborhood, we've kind of had a little bit of a discussion in land use about this, about vacancy and trying to make neighborhoods a little bit more, allowing neighborhoods to have small commercial in them, but also the issue that South Capitol is having. I'd be very interested in the future to have conversations around vacancy tax of empty buildings and if that applies to spaces that are underutilized.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional comments? Okay, seeing none, that concludes our public comment section of the agenda. We will move on to adoption of the consent calendar, but before we do, are there any requests for questions or comments on pulling from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, I need a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of the motion to adopt the consent calendar as published signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Consent calendar is adopted. All right, so that takes us to our, oh, by the way, if you were listening to the vote for the bonds for the Hands-On Children's Museum, we just did it with the adoption of the consent calendar. Just wanted to make that clear. Okay, so our next item on our agenda is 6A, which is the approval of a resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement with Thurston County for judicial services. And presenting this evening is Debbie Sullivan, our Assistant City Manager. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. For the record, I'm Debbie Sullivan, Assistant City Manager, and I am here tonight seeking approval of a resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement with Thurston County for judicial services. The Washington State Legislature in RCW 3.50.805 grants City Council the authority to enter into this agreement. After the interlocal agreement has been approved by the county, proper notice must be given by the city to the state's Administrative Office of the Courts. Over the past several months, Council has been wrestling with this decision. There is no question that our municipal court has a very long history of serving our community with compassion and integrity. However, like other communities, our budget challenges are significant, and a regional approach to judicial services makes sense. Tonight, I'll provide a brief background, share the terms of the agreement, and outline the next steps if Council approves the resolution. For those who are new to the conversation, I'll quickly walk through the background and what led us here tonight. I'll start with the Lee Creighton Justice Center, located at 900 Plum Street. It was built in 1966 and served as City Hall until 2011. It was repurposed at that time to a justice center and housed municipal court, prosecution, public defense, as well as the municipal jail. And in 2017, a major courtroom renovation was completed, anchoring it as a judicial center, justice center. 2 years later, a 2019 facility condition assessment identified over 12 million in deficiencies and reported that serious consideration should be given to replace the facility. The city started a Justice Center master planning process in 2022. The findings estimated that to rebuild, it would cost between $89 to $94 million, which included $32 million to replace the jail. This was instrumental in the decision to close the jail in 2023. In January 2024, the city entered into an exclusive negotiation agreement with Island Enterprises for the sale of 900 Plum Street and immediately got to work with court, prosecution, and public defense staff to find a path forward with the intent of retaining municipal court as part of the city. As we looked at options, we were grounded in two guiding principles. One was Council's commitment to reimagining public safety, and two, the need to achieve long-term budget sustainability. Regarding reimagining public safety, our attention is on goal number 4, which is to reduce the number of individuals who connect initially and repeatedly with law enforcement and the criminal justice system. The strategies include developing and expanding pre-arrest and pre-booking diversion programs, offering restorative practices and transformative justice options, and expanding the availability and use of therapeutic courts. The second guiding principle is Council's goal of achieving long-term budget sustainability. In 2025, the City Council faced an $11.8 million gap. The budget was reduced by $7.7 million, resulting in 27 FTE cuts and the use of $4.1 million of fund balance to close the gap. That gap remains as you go into developing the 2026 budget. So finding a solution that is anchored in our values and addresses our fiscal challenges is the outcome we want to achieve. This city explored 3 options: leasing commercial space, relocating to city-owned buildings, and partnering with the county. With the first 2 options, the city would maintain municipal court and all the related programs. With the city-county partnership, the city retains prosecution, victims and domestic violence assistance programs, as well as public defense. And the city would transition judicial services to Thurston County. These options were shared in more detail on April 22nd at an open public meeting. In summary, leasing commercial space and relocating to city-owned buildings would result in the need to raise capital by issuing debt. We estimate the increase to the general fund operating budget range from $250,000 to $1 million. And if the city built a new facility, the annual expense could be as high as $4 million a year. Staff's recommendation, based on the guiding principles of reimagining public safety and long-term budget sustainability, was to move forward with option 3, where the city retains prosecution and public defense and contracts with Thurston County for judicial services. On April 22nd, where the options were presented in more detail, Council was also asked to approve a resolution, directing staff to negotiate an interlocal agreement in Thurston County. Council approved the resolution, and you directed me to share more information with you regarding the feasibility and impacts of using 108 State Avenue and council chambers as a long-term permanent solution. You also asked me to contact the City of Tukwila to learn how they successfully shared space, collaborate with municipal court staff to hear their ideas, and to plan for a potential transition, and develop an employee transition plan. Basically, working on 2 parallel paths. 1, planning for a transition, while 2, finding a path forward to maintain municipal court. This information was shared with Council during a study session on June 12th. At that study session, I shared with you the work completed between the April 22nd meeting and the June study session. During that time, the city manager and I met on April 25th following the council meeting with the judge and court administrator to listen and talk about our approach moving forward. Miriam Olson and I met with the county on April 29th to start the conversation about transition, learning about each other's programs and services, how they compare, and how the people we serve can access their services. We also talked through the logistics of transitioning and a potential timeline. I also reached out to the court administrator with the City of Tukwila, Trish Kinlow, who spent quite a bit of time with me, Fran Eide, our project engineer, and Miriam Olson on April 30th, where we learned how they successfully shared space with their city council. Our Human Resources Director, Manny Bosser, in conjunction with union leadership, has met with all court and probation employees to hear their interests, needs, wants, and worries. We are actively negotiating a transition plan with the union and non-represented employees. Fran Eide, our project engineer, re-engaged with court, prosecution, and public defense to confirm their operational requirements around 108 State Avenue and council chambers. And finally, we started negotiations with the county. At the June 12th study session, council received an in-depth analysis of using 108 State Avenue and city council chambers as a permanent long-term solution. You heard from our project engineer, Fran Eide, and Bill Valdez with KMB Architects. Although the space could be used to accommodate a short-term need, the findings highlighted that sharing space fundamentally changes the space and poses significant logistical, security, and workflow challenges that would be difficult to sustain over time. Council also heard directly from Frankie Peters, the county's court executive officer, and District Court Judge Sam Myers on the district court programs and services and Commissioner Mejia, and you engage them in a productive conversation, including a conversation about their interest in establishing a community court. And finally, I briefed you on the negotiations of the interlocal agreement, and I heard interest in bringing forward an agreement for your consideration, which again is why I'm here tonight. So I'll pivot to the interlocal agreement before you tonight. It has been reviewed and approved by the staff and legal teams of both the city and the county. I'll walk through the highlights of the agreement, and you have a full copy in your packet. First and foremost, the agreement was shaped by the city's Reimagining Public Safety Goals, adopted by a city council in December 2022, that establishes the city's goal to reduce the number of individuals who connect initially and repeatedly with law enforcement and the criminal justice system. It speaks to the commitment by both the city and county to balancing compassion and accountability through the expansion of restorative justice programs and evidence-based courts, as well as our mutual desire to provide for progressive alternatives and community support through opportunities such as pretrial diversion and probation services. The purpose of the agreement is to provide all court services for all criminal cases and infractions requiring a hearing, as well as progressive alternatives and supervised probation. The term is July 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2026. During this term, the county will complete a comprehensive rate study before this agreement expires. In conversations with the county, their intent is to complete it as soon as possible so it can inform our 2027 budget. This also aligns with other contracts the county has that are expiring at the same time. The agreement is in effect following a 6-month notice provided to the administrative office of the courts by the city once both parties sign the agreement. So let me just state, both parties have to sign the agreement and the city notifies the administrative office of the courts. To extend the contract, the city must give notice to the county no later than October 1st, 2026. At that time, the city and county will negotiate new terms. If an agreement can't be reached, we can either go to arbitration or we can mutually extend the period to continue negotiating or intermediation to solve any outstanding issues. I believe this first year will be focused on the transition, setting up processes and procedures, getting to know one another, and settling in. Regarding the scope of services, it includes case processing and management, progressive alternatives, supervised probation, and other services specifically mentioned is Veterans Court, mental health court, or other therapeutic courts, which could include a community court. The county will provide an annual report on the services provided and specifically report on enrollment in veterans and mental health or other court-offered programs. It also includes file management and retention. The agreement requires the county to provide 60 days notice if any of the services in the agreement change. And then finally, the city and county will meet annually at a minimum to discuss goals and collaborate to identify strategies on how to move forward with progressive alternative programs and services to advance the city's reimagining public safety goals. There is a lot of interest in this area from both city staff and the community. In talking with the county, they welcome future conversations, and since the agreement expires in December 2026, I am recommending we start those conversations shortly after we transition. The costs for services are the same as what I presented on April 22nd. The staffing is based on 17 FTEs. These numbers reflect a start date of January 1st, but depending on when the transition occurs, those amounts will be prorated. The county provided a planning level estimate of $640,000 for one-time tenant improvements, and they are continuing to finalize those numbers, and I anticipate receiving an update by the end of this month so that that number will fluctuate. Finally, this agreement can be terminated by providing written notice to the county 1 year before February 1st of the year district court judges are subject to an election. The judges are up for election in 2026. This is important because the city can only terminate at the end of the 4-year district court judicial term. If the county wants to terminate, they notify the administrative office of the courts not less than 1 year before the agreement expires. And before turning it over to the mayor, I want to forecast next steps. So if you approve the resolution before you tonight, one, we anticipate the Board of County Commissioners will consider this agreement on July 29th. If it is approved, the city will provide our 6-month notice to the Administrative Office of the Courts of our intent to terminate municipal court, and the city will transition judicial services to Thurston County on or around February 1st, 2026. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Any comments or questions from the council? Councilmember Gilman.
Debbie, thank you for the recap there. I just want to say here that I support passing this interlocal agreement without reservation, but with a real sadness about, I've been extremely proud of our court staff, our city prosecutor, our public defense coordination, and our probation services. It was a real honor that under Judge Alf's leadership, it became a national mentor court here through the Center for Court Innovation. And during COVID, the above and beyond work was as evident in those departments as anywhere in the city, and I was super proud of the way we managed that. So I have huge respect and thanks and hope that those folks land as well as they can. But I just, everything you just stepped through, I feel like we considered many different options, and this is the best option for Olympia at this point. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Green.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Debbie. I just want to echo Councilmember Gilman's comments that I support this resolution. And I don't think, I mean, I can just speak for myself that I'm not excited that this is a choice we have to make. But I do feel like the process we've gone through, the research that you've done, that the court staff have helped with, there's just nothing in it that for me has shown us a long-term path forward that seems viable given the realities of our budget and the budget of many other cities. Regionalization is something that comes up a lot here because our cities are so intertwined, and I think this is a place where it is our best option to go forward. I think Thurston County courts have a strong reputation, and I'm really excited to see how that work continues going forward. So I just want to thank you again for all the time and effort that has gone into this. I know it hasn't been easy for you and Jay and the staff either, and I just appreciate that you've gotten us this far.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Councilmember Vanderpool.
I'm just gonna, one additional thought I had is I went out of my way to talk to people that were, nervous, concerned, had a lot of questions, and I would go back and forth and see what are the answers to all of these different scenarios, and I was able to find all the answers I needed in this, and I was able to communicate back and forth with members of the public that were concerned about it. And so I believe that this is the right decision based on all the information we've received, and I'm supporting going forward.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Thank you, Debbie, again, for the recap. We've, sat through several versions of this presentation and have been looking at this information for quite some time. And to be here tonight is really, really unfortunate, because we did look into all of the other options that were suggested by others that were brought forward to us on how we might be able to keep our court. And it's just not feasible. And we threw a lot at you in that April 22nd meeting that none of us anticipated that we would. But based on the feedback that we were hearing from others in the room, we felt that there needed to be answers to those questions. And that's why we got the June study session to have that conversation. And so I appreciate you doing all of that work in the middle of your process to go back to the drawing board and figure out, is there a way before we make this decision to try to preserve our court, given where we are with the budget. And the reality is, as you spoke to in your presentation, is that we could, in theory, keep the court for now, but is not a long-term solution to share the council chambers as an example of one of the options for the next 30 years. That's just not a realistic approach to how we're supposed to maintain a municipal court with the council chambers, and it would dramatically change the accessibility aspects, the look and the feel of the council chambers when this room is supposed to be accessible to members of the public, and this is designed as a council chambers, not a courtroom. And I am really appreciative of all of our staff at the municipal court, including our judge. I know that this is something that has been weighing heavily on all of them for the past several months, anticipating what decision we're going to make in this regard. And I know it hasn't been easy on anyone, including us. And so I just want to acknowledge that this is a really tough time for them, most especially at the municipal court, and we value them for what they've done for us and what they'll continue to do. And obviously, we've made it a priority to make sure that we set them up for success as much as possible, you know, should we make this decision tonight. The other thing I want to say is reimagining public safety, as you said in your presentation, is a priority for us. But that's not just words. That's something we mean. And we have been given the word not only by the county staff, but by a county commissioner here in this chamber at a study session who said that they are open to, you know, potential ways of how to provide more alternative services in the way that we do here in Olympia. And that verbiage exists on the first page of our ILA, that they are also interlocal agreement for those who are listening. On the first page of that, there is a commitment that they are committed to reimagining public safety and will work with us, which brings me to this idea of local control, which is that you know, we keep hearing that, oh, we will give up local control, and that is true to an extent. But it's not entirely true. One, because we don't have full control over the court. It is a municipal court. It is a separate branch of government. The city council does not have total control over another branch of government. But we do have some control over the sense that we appoint the city's judge, and in the event of a vacancy, for example, as the case with Judge Noguera, and we also are able to speak to whether or not we think our court is in line with the city's values. And so at this point, this is, I think, what people are getting at when they talk about giving up that control, is the concern that the county is not going to be as forward-thinking as the city of Olympia. And I would say that we have no evidence of that being the case in terms of issues that are dramatic enough for us to reconsider this decision. Our neighbors of Lacey and Tumwater have been contracting with the county in this regard for years at this point, and so there is a precedent there. And while we are giving up some of our control, we still have some of it in the sense that, as you just heard, we can revisit our ILA with the county at any given time. We just have parameters around how much time we have to give notice. And so we will be monitoring what happens with our court services in the future over at the county, and future councils will have decisions to make in that regard as to whether or not we'll maintain that agreement in the future. I really appreciate, Debbie, your work. I know it hasn't been easy to stand up here and feel the tension behind you. I'm sure of you know, wanting to of folks saying that, you know, we're not doing our very best. And I know that you have. I've seen the work that you've done. I've seen the work that the court has done, and being able to, for you to present here tonight, that's thanks not only to your work, but the work of the court as well, the staff at the court who have provided that information to you so that we could have all the information put in front of us. And for those of you who haven't been following this issue for the last several months, we don't have $50 to $90 million for a new facility, which is what we would need to maintain our court. We don't have that kind of money, and that doesn't even include the ongoing expense of maintaining a court in addition to the expense of the facility. And we're just not in a place where we can do that with our budget. And so that is what's driving this decision tonight. It's not an easy one, and it's certainly one that I wish we weren't making. So with that, Councilmember Green, you have the motion.
Thank you, Mayor Payne. I move to approve a resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement with Thurston County for judicial services.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, so that takes us to our next item on our agenda tonight, item 6B, which is the approval of the Poet Laureate recommendation for 2025-2027. And we have Stephanie Johnson, our Arts Commission staff liaison, presenting this evening, along with Kathy Dorgan, the chair of the Arts Commission. Good to see you both.
Thank you, Mayor Payne and members of council. Again, for the record, Stephanie Johnson, Arts Program Manager with Parks, Arts, and Recreation, and with me is Kathy Dorgan, Chair of the Olympia Arts Commission. Every 2 years, the City of Olympia selects a Poet Laureate to engage our entire community in the literary arts. Olympia's Poet Laureate is less an honorary title and more about service over status. Duties include promoting poetry as an art form, expanding access to the literary arts, and encouraging poetry as a community voice that contributes to a sense of place. Olympia has had 4 Poet Laureates to date, and Olympia's next Poet Laureate will be called specifically to utilize the power of poetry and language to contribute to thoughtful response and centering around the concept of resilience.
So, the Arts Commission assembled a selection committee to review applications and interview applicants. Upon their consideration, the Arts Commission recommends Ocean to the City Council for Olympia Poet Laureate 2025 to 2027. The committee appreciated Ocean's ability to articulate the concept of resilience in a very engaging and accessible way. Ocean is an accomplished poet with a resume of awards, publications, and readings stretching back to 2004. In his application, Ocean notes, if accepted as Olympia Poet Laureate, his primary audience would be Olympia's diverse residents with a particular focus on youth, marginalized communities, and those who may typically not engage with poetry. Youth are the future of our community, and their creative voices can shape how we address resilience. Marginalized groups, including BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, and low-income residents, often face unique challenges, and their perspectives on resilience are vital to a holistic community narrative. He would also reach out to seniors, veterans, and families, ensuring poetry is accessible to all ages and backgrounds, fostering a sense of belonging across Olympia's neighborhoods.
Your staff report includes Ocean's application and submitted reading. We will be returning next week to celebrate our outgoing Poet Laureate. So given your decision tonight, this evening, next week could also be an opportunity to meet Ocean as they pass the baton, so to speak. So the motion before you tonight is to approve Ocean as Poet Laureate for the term of 2025 to 2027.
Thank you both so much. Are there any questions or comments from council? Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
How exciting. This, I can't believe that we're already on our 5th Poet Laureate. Yeah, this is still, I would consider a pretty new program still. And every Poet Laureate has been so different. They've left sort of different imprints and different, they're just different people with different styles of not only just putting words together, but then also bringing it out into the community and what that looks like. I always have fun still with the imprinted words in the cement when you're going along West Bay, right? I think that was our 2nd Poet Laureate. Or maybe it was our first, but I was, something that I was really drawn to, and I'm looking forward to meeting Ocean, hopefully in our next meeting, is their community engagement strategy. They have poetry in public spaces. They have a community anthology project, collaborative art projects, visual engagement, where they're going to be using some online, like remote tools to reach people. And then the school partnerships thing is really neat. So that hasn't been something that everyone has done. So very, very cool. Looking forward to meeting them. And unless there's any other comments, I'd love to make a motion. All right. With that, I will move to approve the appointment of Ocean as Poet Laureate for the years 2025 to 2027.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. And congratulations to Ocean. Not sure if they're watching, but if not, they can watch later. But congratulations to you, and council looks forward to meeting you next week. Okay, so that takes us to our final item on our agenda tonight, which is item 6C, the approval to issue debt for Yelm Highway Community Park Phase 1 construction and the Armory Center Art Center Phase 1 renovations. And presenting tonight is Sylvana Niehauser, our Interim Director of Parks, Arts, and Recreation.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. For the record, I'm Sylvana Niehauser, Interim Parks, Arts, and Recreation Director, and today I'm presenting an exciting opportunity funding 2 long-awaited community projects through a combined financing strategy. These investments represent over 30 years of community aspirations, the Yelm Highway Community Park and the Armory Arts Center. They are community-backed, grant-leveraged, and shovel-ready. These projects represent generational investments. Olympia's first new community park of this size in over 40 years, and the realization of decades-long pursuit of an arts center. They address critical access gaps, and they leverage over $6.3 million in outside funding, and they strengthen deep-rooted community partnerships. Staff recommends a 30-year bond that will fully fund the first and most critical phases of both projects and relies on current park funding and the extension of a little more than half of the non-voted utility tax that's set to expire in 2029 for 20 years. This presentation will walk you through how we arrived at that recommendation. These projects that I'm gonna present tonight are transformative projects. They're a once-in-a-career time projects that support community wellness, equity, and economic vibrancy. These projects are community-backed, grant-leveraged, and shovel-ready. On June 16th, we presented to Finance Committee, and we received clear guidance that they wanted to see a package that would fully fund both projects while limiting the reliance on the expiring NVUT, the non-voted utility tax resource, and limiting reliance on using funds allocated to other projects or additional fund balances. I'm going to tell you a little bit of the backstory of how we got here. So, Olympia has waited decades, 40 years, for a new community park of this size with soccer fields. We do not have a single full-size soccer field in our park's inventory. Our soccer players here in Olympia rely on sharing school fields and going to our neighboring communities and sometimes traveling outside of Thurston County to play soccer. Rectangular fields also serve lacrosse and rugby and football and other sports as well. Olympia has been in search of an arts center for 36 years. It was first identified in the late 80s as a need for our community. Our community has grown and the demand has outpaced available space. These projects are called for in many of our major city plans, including our comprehensive plan, several of our parks plans, the Arch Plan, and that's just to name a few. Projects of these size are legacy projects. They require a type of funding like the or the debt package that I'm going to present tonight. They are historic in both scale and impact. Yelm Highway is a $27 million project for Phase 1, and the Armory improvements are a $19 million project, and together they total $46 million in strategic investment. So I'm going to recap for those who are not aware of our journey in pursuit of a community park that could have rectangular fields. So in 2000, we purchased a small 4-acre parcel off of Yelm Highway. It's often referred to as the green parcel, and we were hoping to get a toehold on a larger parcel there. In 2004, we had a voted measure for land acquisition, and then in 2014, we did a community park site suitability study. And what that showed us is that the Yelm Highway property that we currently own today was the #1 rated property for a community park that would be able to accommodate rectangular fields. In 2015, our voters generously passed the Metropolitan Parks District, and in 2018, we were able to acquire 83 additional acres. So together we have 87 acres there off of Yelm Highway. We quickly entered into the master plan process, took a little detour while we explored some co-location with the school district, came back to redesigning it as a park, and we got our special use permit. We've mitigated the habitat conservation for that property for development. We've also applied and received grants for it. And we're ready to break ground in 2026. We're at 90% design. Our community's been with us all along the way, generations of soccer players that started out very young. Now they're grown and have some soccer players of their own. We also have done extensive work through our master planning and had a lot of public engagement there. We've worked with the neighborhoods, we've worked with the schools, and we've received a lot of community support from our pickleball players and our dog park users along the way, so much so that they've put money towards the project. So Phase 1 of the Yelm Highway Community Park will include a full-size synthetic lit soccer field. It'll include a playground, pickleball courts, there'll be open space, there'll be a community plaza. It's going to be designed for all ages and all backgrounds. This park will meet a broad amount of community needs. This rendering shows you a picture from the green parcel side, so that's the east side of the park, looking west. And you'll see there's some little features called a mini pitch and a Yelp Toro. The Rave Foundation has generously offered to build those at no cost. We also have 13 pickleball courts with an ADA accessible court, which we've heard from our pickleball community that they're excited about and we'll be using. We have a large play area that's going to incorporate sensory play as well as climbing and accessible features. It's actually really exciting. Hit me up if you want to see the video later. And 2 full-size basketball courts. We don't have a single full-size basketball court in our park system. So this is going to be really important. We're going to have support amenities, restrooms, parking, EV parking, bicycle parking, that's covered. And there's going to be a lot of trees that are going to go in as well, frontage improvements, really thinking about how we're going to get people to this park from the neighboring neighborhoods. So the cost is $27 million. We've secured $3.85 million in grants, and we've invested $14 million to date. We feel that this park has been designed with the community and that it is ready to go. We did experience a little bit of some cost inflation, so we did reduce the scope of our maintenance shop, and we have plans to be able to build that out in the future. But we, not the office part of it, but the shop building, we reduced it by 50%. We also reduced down to 1 picnic shelter, and we looked at our furnishings and our materials. So for example, concrete is more expensive than asphalt, so some of our pathways that were originally going to be concrete, we switched over to asphalt. So through all this value engineering, we were able to reduce the cost by about $4 million, and that's how we got to the $26.7 million, and that includes the rest of the design as well.
Silvana?
Yes.
We have a question from Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Sure.
It's a recreational question. Could you go back 2 slides where it had the different labels and aerial view? Yeah. Could you just humor me and go through where there's a mini pitch and the different Yelp areas? Can you describe what that is? I think for some people it's foreign.
Well, it kind of is. It's more common over in Europe. So this is going to be new to our community. So those are different spaces where they're not going to be necessarily formally programmed, and individuals can go in there and practice their ball handling skills. The Yelp Sutu right there is where you would kick the ball and try to light up a square. We've also seen people or heard that people do it with pickleball too. But and then the Yelp Toro is like kind of a large square space with goals, and so you're playing a mini game. It moves fast, the ball, but it really helps you improve your ball handling skills. And the idea of having it right in this space is that while siblings might be playing soccer or parents might be playing soccer, the kids could be close by, practicing their ball handling skills, having fun in this space. So it's another play feature that adds to the recreation amenities there at the park. You're welcome. Any other questions on this?
Okay, one more.
I have another recreational question. So, love accessible pickleball courts. Don't know how I would create one. I don't know if that expertise already existed in parks, but can you talk a little bit about how did we, for something like that, was it, I know there was a lot of public feedback, right? And so how did we, sort of take these different things like that, which is very unique, into consideration and make sure that we had the know-how to design a space and it was feasible. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have a really good consultant team who understands that Accessibility is really important, and the Parks Department has been investing in accessibility upgrades since 2018, and we invest about $200,000 a year into that. And so as we build new, we want to make sure that we're keeping all of our park users in mind, and that I didn't know at the time that we were, making decisions on design that there were accessible pickleball courts, and our consultant brought that to us. We were originally going to have 12, and with an accessible court, it's got more space to be able to maneuver and get around. So it does take up a little bit more space, and it's going to be kind of centralized. But it also offered then some spectator space in that footprint for folks that are there waiting for the next game or wanting to watch. But our consultants had brought that to us, and we thought about adding one more pickleball court, but really it could be life-changing for somebody who doesn't have access to that type of facility. And our pickleball club actually reached out to our project manager and said, we have somebody in our club that will be utilizing that. So,
Thank you so much, Silvana, for just taking a little bit more time on this slide. I'm sure this entire project leading up to this point has been a lot of work. I'm sure a lot of different things to listen to and react to, right? And so you just spending a little bit more time explaining just a portion of this, I think is just really rich. So thank you.
Yeah, one of the things we've been talking about with the plaza area is also how low vision park users can navigate the space and how we can create edges that a cane would end up feeling and things like that. So we have some great experts on our consultant team that have been doing research and bringing it back to us. So definitely something that we've been looking at. And also we've been putting together a lot of alternate bids so that if things start coming in lower, we can add different features, features that are accessible, things that expand recreation and stuff like that too. So. All right, so we covered the costs and where we did some reductions. And this is another rendering here, and shows the picnic shelter with the playground. So thinking about proximity for folks that want to rent the picnic shelter to all the different amenities. Nice wide pathways so that if you've got a stroller or a wheelchair, that folks aren't having to step off of the pathway and make somebody feel like, oh, they're having to do that because, I'm coming down the pathway and whatnot. So really just thinking about how people are going to navigate that space. And this is just a nice rendering kind of showing the flow. With Yelm Highway Community Park, we've got nearly half of the funds secured, and so the remaining portion that we don't have secured is $14.7 million that we're looking to debt finance, and we would combine that with the Armory portion, and I'll talk about the Armory next, and we would be utilizing primarily Parks dedicated funding to pay that back. So the Armory is a true gem to have. It's a 1938 gem. If you've been in the construction business before or tried to renovate a 1938 home, there's lots of little surprises too. But its funkiness and its just amazing space, 50,000 square feet, are really going to serve our arts community, and we're super excited about it. So I mentioned that since the late 80s, 1989, we've identified a need for a community arts center, and it's been in 9 planning documents to date. It was so fun updating the comprehensive plan to be able to be like, we got the Armory, I can change that from trying to acquire an arts center to develop an arts center. So this is a really pivotal time to be able to make a decision to transform this Armory so that we can open it up for public use. In 2022, it was transferred to the City of Olympia from the state to be an arts center, so that was specified in the transfer. And to date, we're at 80% design. We've been working with Department of Enterprise Services, and we have Amoresco as our contractor, and they have got, they've been working on the design. And as we've moved through this design process, and also as we have moved through the permitting process, we've learned a lot more about what's going to be required. And so the cost did increase on that. That's why we went to Finance Committee twice, is to give an update. So I will share a little bit more about that in a minute. The community process has been very extensive for the Armory. There's been community visioning and concept plan, revenue generation strategy that has been developed, arts interventions project, which was really fun, getting to see folks just get involved in the design process and how the Armory is going to be used. We've also opened it up for interim facility rentals and tours, but just a little note that we can only use a fraction of the space for occupancy because it's not up to code for safety and accessibility. And every time we're going to use the space for the public, we've got to go talk to the building official and get approval, and we got to make sure that, you know, we have a plan in place and that it's approved. So by doing these safety and accessible updates to the Armory, we're going to be able to fully utilize that space. We've also selected our anchor partners, and they are excited and ready to move in. So we have 8 nonprofits that have been selected. And this is going to be a unique hub for the arts. Here's a rendering here, and I'll just touch on some of the safety and accessibility improvements. So if you've toured the Armory, you'll notice there's a lot of stairs and there's no elevator. So one of the improvements is going to be an elevator, along with a lot of other ADA access improvements. Fire systems need to be updated, electrical, plumbing. All of this comes into a total of $19 million. Our team has been amazing at securing some grants. We got $2.5 million in grants, and we've invested a little over $1.2 million to date. I want to talk about some of the improvements because they're not necessarily kind of the big, sexy improvements. They're really needed improvements that if they don't happen today, they're going to need to happen in the future. So structural improvements, seismic improvements. With the solar panel installation and battery storage, we'll get a new roof. There'll be reinforcements to the roof. There's going to be lead and asbestos abatement because it's an old building. Fire suppression system, so that, as you may know, that new buildings need fire suppression systems. Another thing we discovered through the design process is that what we thought was an air intake for the HVAC system actually was not, and there is no air intake. So I know Councilmember Cooper wanted to see the HVAC in this, and we are going to do some of the HVAC improvements. So we're going to do the air intake so that some of that work that would have happened in a later phase is actually going to happen now. And that was about a $1.4 million investment to the HVAC system, but it's going to bring in some fresh air. We have some frontage improvements that we'll be making to the sidewalk in the right-of-way area. We're going to get a new electrical service through Puget Sound Energy, so that's another cost. So that's where I feel really confident in the costs. I've had some great discussions with Amoresco and DES, who representatives are also here tonight. And I feel really good about the costs and the investment. So debt financing for the Armory would cover just over $12 million of the total $18.9 million. The rest of it we have in hand or we have through grants. We've been setting aside Metropolitan Park District revenue as well. So cumulatively, we are looking to debt finance $26.6 million, and that will get us to fully funding both first phases of the project. It's a little more than half of the total project cost. And I know this is a big decision, and you may be asking, why now? Well, our designs are at 80 and 90% complete. We've got anchor partners selected. We've been able to leverage external funding. We've got broad community support. And this is an opportunity to combine the projects and do one debt package for them. It also aligns with city growth and strategic planning. It meets a lot of needs that have been longstanding in our community. And we've invested a lot to date in designing the projects and getting prepared for this point. These investments also support 5 of the 6 community focus areas. It fully aligns with our long-term planning. So with the Finance Committee guidance, we explored several options at Finance Committee. We mostly looked at 20-year debt, and we looked at options that had everything from no voted utility tax funds to utilizing or extending the voted utility tax funds. And what we had found is that we'd definitely have to reduce the scope if we don't extend the NVUT funds. And we would also, in reducing the scope, we would not be able to do the solar arrays or any of the roof preparations, the garage door and things like that on the armory. So with Finance Committee, what we heard was that they support fully funding both projects without pulling the solar out. Look at a longer-term debt, see what we can do with that, and limit the use of fund balance and pulling funds from other projects, and also limit the use of the non-voted utility tax that's expiring in 2029. So this isn't the one that's expiring this year. We know that that is needed for the 2026 budget. So that's going to go back to the general fund. This is the one that would be in 2029. And in talking with Jay, he relayed that he hopes that in 2029 we've achieved our sustainable budget and that we're not in this same situation where turning back the funds is so critical to balance the budget. So some of those scenarios that I talked about, all of these bond scenarios on this slide do not include the non-voted utility tax 0.5% extension. And you'll see that if we were to do a 20-year bond, we would have to take about $2.3 million from other projects and also reduce another $1.25 million from Yelm Highway and reduce the scope of the armory to about $12.7 million from the 19. Looking at going to a 30-year, again, we'd still have to use $2.3 million in fund balance and plus a $2 million scope reduction. If we were to fund the solar. Otherwise, if we reduced the project and didn't fund the solar, we could do a 30-year without taking fund balances. So we've sliced and diced the numbers a lot of different ways. And when it came down to trying to fully fund the projects and include the solar and not take any more scope reductions, we landed with staff feeling comfortable with the 30-year bond that would fully fund both projects and using just a little over half of the NVUT for 20 years, not the 30 years. And I want to specify that we're not asking for it for 30 years because we have another bond that's going to be paid back in 20 years. And so the idea is that would free up more revenue. So what we would ask for is a 20-year extension. I want to quickly just show that for the repayment of the annual debt payment, we're looking at using $700,000 of our voted utility tax that is dedicated to parks, and $750,000 of our Metropolitan Park District funding that's dedicated to parks. And then you'll see in the far right-hand column, $270,000 of the non-voted utility tax that is set to go back to the general fund in 2029. And again, we'd be asking for an extension on that use. And right now, we predict that the non-voted utility tax comes in at about $525,000 per year. The impact of debt, I want to make sure you have all the information before you, is definitely going to slow down the pace of development. We'll still have impact fees coming in, and we'll still have money allocated towards our infrastructure improvements, so we'll still be taking care and maintaining our current infrastructure. We will utilize impact fees and SEPA mitigation fees as match for grants, but it will slow the pace down. But these are two legacy projects, and we're expecting that to slow down. Our yearly payment will be about $1.72 million, and our first debt payment would be due next year while we're under construction. If approved to issue debt, we would come back to you with the bond ordinance later this month, and then we would be on the same timeline as the Hands-On Children's Museum to where we would do our bond rating in August, and then we would look to sell debt at the same time as the Hands-On Children's Museum in September, and we could get started shortly thereafter in signing our contract for the Armory, and we plan on putting out to bid the Yelm Highway Community Park project at the end of this year and hope to break ground in early next year.
Silvana?
Yes.
We have a question from Councilmember Green.
Hey, Silvana.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for this. I mean, you know, we got such great information in finance, and I really appreciate, you know, you clearly heard where we were at, and this to me looks like some really solid options. I just wanted to pause here and reflect on number 6, because we've had 3 issues. This is the 3rd issue before us tonight that has had conversations around bond and debt and different things. And so I feel compelled to reiterate, and Debbie, correct me if I'm wrong, of the 3 things before us tonight: the Hands-On Children's Museum, that debt, those payments will come from dedicated state level funds to pay that. This one, payments will come from this dedicated Parks, Arts, and Recreation funding primarily, which is it's built in, it is there, it's not new, it's not hitting our operating budget. And so I just want to confirm that that's kind of the big difference between the 3, whereas if we were looking at taking on debt for a justice center or any other kind of capital project, that would be new money we would need to come up with.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for bringing that up. It's really important because the revenue that is being used to pay this debt, the funds, can only be used for those projects. They cannot be used for a general purpose. So if you decided not to issue this debt, those Olympia Metropolitan Park District's money could still only be used for parks. And same with the Public Facility District funds. So thank you.
Thank you.
And we've been working really hard at creating our operating budget projections, which would also stick within our parks allocated funding. This is reliant on the interlocal agreement of the Metropolitan Parks District and the City of Olympia, so where that outlines the voted utility tax, the non-voted utility tax, as well as the 11% of the general fund. So just want to make sure that you have that information, that we are also planning to be able to operate the facilities within our resources that we currently are allocated. I also want to mention that over 20 or 30 years, things could change. And
One
any
moment,
general fund.
Savannah,
Yes.
one moment. We have a question, another question from Councilmember Madrone.
Well, and it was a follow-up and a clarification with what Councilmember Green asked. My understanding is that, yes, most of this is dedicated revenue for parks. And then we also have the decision of extending the voted utility tax, which would return to the general fund in 2029. We would be, part of this package tonight is making the decision to extend that for another 20 years. So I just wanted to issue that clarification, and I've been trying to, I'm trying to just keep my eye on the ball, so to speak. And so by extending that 0.5% of non-voted utility tax from 2029 for another 20 years, it looks like that brings in $500,000 per year, and then that's spread over the 30-year bond. Because I just see different numbers here, so I'm just trying to track.
So the non-voted utility tax 0.5% currently expires in 2029. So we will be getting all $525,000 of that up until it expires. At that point, it would, without any council action, go back to the general fund. What we're proposing is that $270,000 of that stay with parks and until 2049. And so 20 years beyond its normal. And we may even be able to change that down the road to terminate earlier, depending on how things are financially. So it's also, I wanted to present all this information so that you know what resources would be utilized or not. And so that thinking about how we can limit the use of that non-voted utility tax, this was where we landed. And
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And it's great information. It's just a lot of it, hence me trying to keep my eye on the ball. So it sounds like the proposal that is in 2029, some of it stays with parks and some goes back to the general fund. So it's kind of splitting it up to make this feasible. So
yeah, and we would need to work with legal to look at the interlocal agreement, see if it needs to be changed there or how we go about making that decision to allocate it to parks if that was the decision that was made.
Okay, great. That was the part I didn't see explicitly named anywhere, is that some of it is still going back to the general fund under this proposal. So I really appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if any revenue opportunities came about, whether it's an increase to the general fund, that increases the 11% that Parks is issued out of that money. If there was an OMPD levy lid lift, that could also be utilized to repay this debt, as well as if council decides to pursue Southeast annexation, then those homeowners would be paying into the Metropolitan Park District fund as well. So it's not a guarantee that we would need that, but with the resources we currently have, that's why it's in the proposals, because we don't know what revenue opportunities will come in the future. So we presented to Finance Committee on June 16th, and we're here tonight in July. And if council decides to move forward with the issuance of debt, we'll come back towards the end of July with the bond ordinance. And then in September would be the sale of the bond, and the Armory would start construction shortly thereafter. Yelm Highways construction would likely happen in February of 2026, and then we would have some grand reopenings in the spring of 2027. All right, that concludes my presentation, so if you have any questions.
Thank you. Before we turn it over for additional questions, I'm going to turn it over to our Chair of Finance, Councilmember Gilman, for comments.
So as Silvana explained, we had 2 rounds of this conversation at Finance with a visit to Council in between. And we brought it back because as the design process continued, it was clear that our initial hope for the financial package was not going to allow us to get the armory to the place we want in that phase 1. So I'm going to step up out of the weeds for a second to go to sort of the 50,000 foot level that Silvana mentioned, that this is a legacy project, and it certainly is for staff. But I would also ask that even though we have tough budget this year, we're in this world of weird uncertainty, we're planning projects that will be used for generations, and that we're making investments today that will be paid off across a generation and will serve the community for generations to come. And so to my mind, it's a moment to be bold and unafraid and trust the 7 years of planning so far. I mean, this is also still moving at the speed of government. We're not rushing into this, that's right. But I think both these first phases of both projects get us where people can touch, feel, and use these 2 facilities, and will really add momentum to finishing the development of both facilities. And then I just want to take one more cut. There was a lot of interest in the non-voted utility tax. So we have 2.5% that council chose. That's why it's called non-voted, that we acted as a council to assess these taxes on utilities. The first 0.5% expires next year in 2026, and that's going to return. We're going to continue the tax, but we're going to put the revenue from that tax into the general fund. We have a similar opportunity in 2029. There's another 0.5% of non-voted utility that we created as a parks funding mechanism. And the request tonight is to extend it that part of this package is in 2029, we would extend that 0.5% of utility tax to continue to fund parks for those 20 years. And about half of it would be required to meet the debt servicing in order to do the solar and the other components of this phase. And the other half would continue, but I believe it would stay within parks, the other half of that funding.
It could, I think, from my understanding is it could stay with parks, but it could also go back to the general fund.
Sure.
So,
I guess anything's possible.
Yeah.
But I would just urge that that we can both examine down in the weeds. I think it was a lot of drafts and iterations to get to this. I understand it's a little bit unwieldy, and it's in a time of uncertainty. But I also think that it was done with great deliberation over several years. It leverages investments that have already been made and grants that are sitting there waiting to be leveraged. So I think it's a moment to imagine doing something that will serve generations in the future. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Madrone.
Well, first off, I'm really excited by this, and I'm not a sports person, and as much as I love the arts, I don't do much of them myself. I leave that to the other people, the creators. So, but this is really exciting to me, and what Councilmember Gilman was just speaking of as in terms of investments in future generations, like all of that is just great, and it's so nice to be able to move big things forward and get out of that perpetual state of planning. So I'm really excited by this. I just have to dig in a little bit more on the NVUT, and just because I just heard two different things said. I'm supportive of using a portion of that and locking it in for these bonds, but I'm confused as to whether or not the remainder is available to the general fund or remains in parks for other uses. And my preference is that we have the option of bringing that back into the general fund in 2029 should we need it. So I'm curious if we can get clarification on that.
We can get clarification on it, but I'm almost certain that it is available for the general fund.
Okay, I'm just looking at the motion here, extending the use of the NVUT 0.5% from 2029 to 2049. It's pretty, I just don't want us to lock anything in, and lock a future council in, more than we need to get this over the finish line, so.
Okay. I think we can clarify that the extension of 20 years is for a portion of the NVUT.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I just have one other, just more general question. One of the goals of the Finance Committee is to also be able to do other things in parks, and maintain that capacity for those of us who aren't sports people or arts people. We have a lot of other things that we're working on. We've got a whole strategic plan around parks. And so I'm just wondering if you can just speak high level, don't get too into the weeds, but how is it that we can move these two large parks forward, knowing that we've got, Percival Landing and, the conversation with the school district on the farm park and the aquatic center, and, and all of our neighborhood parks, and our goal of having parks within walking distance of residents, so high level, how can we do this and continue to move forward on other things?
Yeah, that's a great question. And internally, staff has really spent a lot of time talking about this. And next year, we're going to be starting our planning process for updating our parks plan. That's also going to help with our capital investment strategy. But I want to mention that some of the other large legacy projects are still in the planning phases, like Percival Landing, and we're having some great internal meetings with other departments because we realize that our downtown waterfront is bigger than just parks. And we are making plans to engage the Squaxin Island Tribe and as another government entity and Department of Natural Resources. So those projects are going to take a little bit longer. You may have seen on your council work plan that was delayed because we want to make sure that we're bringing folks along and that we're really doing this collaboratively for those large projects. You might remember West Bay planning has taken several years, but we are getting close to bringing you a finished master plan that we feel really good about, that the tribe has just really worked with us on, and our consultants have worked hard on, and we've had a lot of community engagement. But again, they're in the planning stages. And those are really large legacy projects as well. And regardless of whether this funding measure is, moves forward or this debt package moves forward, they're going to need a separate funding package because to address sea level rise and to rework the shoreline and, really transform downtown waterfront, it's going to cost some money. The aquatics facility, we would love to have a partner that's ready to start, and we could get an interlocal agreement on a second public facilities district going. But we're not at that point yet. We're continuing conversations, and that is a tool that we have, is a second public facilities district for an aquatic center, but it needs to be regional. And so we need some of our neighboring partners to be ready. And so we've done the feasibility study, and we're continuing conversation. And when the opportunity is right, then we can start moving forward on those. With our neighborhood parks, we've been very successful with grants. We've got an amazing team of planners and engineers, and our finance and policy staff member. And so we'll continue to leverage grants and use our impact fees because those will be new development. We're going to still have $750,000 a year that we're going to invest into our current infrastructure upgrades, as well as our ADA accessibility, and we're just about at 50% of getting all of our ADA deficiencies addressed, or actually we might be a little over 50% now. And then we have a separate fund for Percival Landing that we're not touching. So we know that structure costs a lot to maintain. And so we're not dipping into the Percival Landing funding to fund these projects.
Okay.
So
I said keep it high level, but into the weeds, I actually love the weeds. But overall, what I'm hearing is like, you know, we're keeping all the balls in the air. We're continuing to move everything forward while getting ready for the fast pitch on two really big legacy projects. So I appreciate the response. Thank you so much, Silvana. And I know it's a lot of work to get something prepared to bring to us tonight. I know that Paul was a big part of that before he left us for Tacoma. So, you know, just wanted to give him some recognition this evening as well, because I know he was a force behind a lot of this work, and I saw him in the presentation there. So just thank you for your work, and, you know, I know that we'll be able to move these really awesome projects forward, and also all the other things that the Parks Department does so well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? So speaking of being in a perpetual state of government planning, just to put it into perspective, I wasn't born the last time a community park was built. And I was 3 years old since the need for an art center was identified in 1989. So that's how long it's taken for us to get here. It's really exciting, as Councilmember Madrone pointed out, to be able to move projects like this forward, especially given where we are with the budget, and to be able to find a creative solution. I really appreciate the Finance Committee for the direction that you've given. And for the recommendation before us tonight. I think it's pretty responsible in terms of, you know, the limited use of tapping into in affecting other projects, and very carefully thought out. So I just wanted to lift up the Finance Committee in that work. So thanks for doing that. I'm really excited about the pickleball courts, personally myself. I can get pretty competitive in a game of pickleball. One thing is, as we were talking about the different features on the one field there, I'm going to make a plug. I know these things don't work like this, but I'm going to take the time to say it anyway because I have the mic. So with the pickleball courts, I hope that there is something that tells people that it is our state sport, right? Because we are the capital, and so let's have a display there that educates people as they visit our pickleball courts. I really am excited about seeing these two projects come to fruition. I know that some of the cost is a little bit unanticipated, and there are some adjustments that are needed, but it seems like we have a viable solution. And Councilmember Madrone, thank you for making sure that we're not locking ourselves in. I think that was great to really dig into that and make sure we all understand what's going to happen tonight. And so I just appreciate all of your work and Paul's work, as Councilmember Madrone said a moment ago. And looking forward to getting these two projects up and going, and then beyond that to hopefully we're looking at an aquatic center, you know, soon. So with that, I believe Councilmember Gilman has the motion.
I do, and first I just want to say that the motion is broad enough that the motion we're making tonight does not bind that extension of the non-voted utility tax to be specifically in the parks budget. It simply says that we're going to continue it, and we can fine-tune that as it comes time to make that extension, and we have an amazing staff who can draft that. So at this point, we're simply saying that we'd like to extend it as part of the debt servicing, and good. So the motion is, I would like to move to approve the staff recommendation to issue a 30-year debt with estimated proceeds of $26.57 million and an annual payment of $1.72 million, extending the use of the non-voted utility tax 0.5% from 2029 to 2049 to fund Yelm Highway Community Park Phase 1 construction and the Armory Arts Center Phase 1 renovations.
Second. I always do that. Whenever I second something, I wait for the mayor, and it's me. All right. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right. Yeah. Okay, so that concludes our business items for tonight. So we'll move on to council reports, and I'll begin with the mayor's report. And I just want to just mention attending a few events over the past several weeks, beginning with the ribbon cutting for the new Capital City History Museum, thanks to Olympia Arts and Heritage Alliance, who had their ribbon cutting. That museum is on the corner of State and Columbia, and just really wanted to lift up Oli Aha, as well as the Bigelow House Museum and all of the players that were at the table to bring that proof of concept to life so that we can see what it would be like to have a museum here in the capital city, because we have so much rich history to tell, and we thank them for their work in leading that process so that we can tell it. So if you can, I encourage you to go and check out that museum, and we look forward to seeing its expansion in the future. Also had the privilege of attending Capital City Pride. I just wanted to lift up all of the folks who not only attended Capital City Pride, but the folks behind organizing it and putting it on. It expands and gets bigger every year. It was very exciting. All 7 members of the council were present for the Pride Parade, and we were out there with Olympia's current and retired firefighters, as well as Lacey firefighters as well. We were joined by our Assistant City Manager, Debbie Sullivan, as well as State Senator Jessica Bateman. And it was just a really wonderful time and encouraging. I know that we're in a time where there's a lot of angst and uncertainty and not a lot of good things happening, but that day was a day that felt really good, and we were able to kind of tune things out and just appreciate being in community together. So that was a wonderful day. And then also I had the privilege of attending the annual Tumwater Independence Day Parade, and wanted to thank the city of Tumwater for putting that community event on again this year. It was really exciting to see so many community members from throughout the county who were excited to participate. And I will just say again that really tumultuous times, difficult times, but it is not lost on me that there are still a lot of things that are good and worth celebrating about what this country has to offer to the people who live in it. And it was really exciting to think about what those positive things are that are left, because there are many. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to our community for banding together in a time that is not easy, but it's nice to know that we still have people around us who love and care for one another and lift each other up. So with that, I'll start to my left with Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Mayor Payne. I have no report.
Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
I'll just say one thing was, and many of you on the dais already know this, but the last Community Livability and Public Safety Committee meeting was well attended by many, I would say the majority of council members, and this was our special meeting where we have all the representatives from our many advisory bodies and the staff liaisons, the chairs and co-chairs in attendance, and we did it a little different this year. And that was thanks to the thoughtful design of Assistant City Manager Stacy Ray and many other hands of staff and council committee members that helped lift it up. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all of the feedback that we got. We did a it's called a liberating structure, but basically, get up out of your seat. Let's move around a little bit. Let's not be boring, and let's be productive and get some fruit out of this meeting. And that's exactly what we got. Lots of thoughtful feedback about what's going well and what could be enhanced as far as our council advisory bodies. And so thank you so much to everyone that was able to attend, and for council colleagues that had a conflict, we look forward to seeing you next year. I think this is something that we're going to want to continue. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and kudos to you and to staff for having the vision to pivot that annual meeting and turn it into something new. It was way better than we've done it in the past, so thanks. Any questions for Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen? Councilmember Madron.
Yeah, not a question, just more kudos. Like, I really enjoyed it. You said the whole point of it was to get up and move around. I actually stayed at the table I was at the whole time because we were having such a good conversation about the relationship between council and our advisory committee members. But it was really rich discussion. I met some people that I hadn't had a chance to meet before who were working on our behalf to bring us good recommendations for us to consider in our work. And I also, Stacy had a really great icebreaker, and I want those hidden gems. I know Mary Grace got them, so if there's a way to get those hidden gems of Olympia to us, I would love that.
Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
You could also run a public disclosure request to Mary Grace for them.
All right, Councilmember Gilman.
No report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Vanderpool.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Councilmember Madron.
Got nothing.
Wow. Okay. Assistant City Manager Debbie Sullivan. No pressure.
Jay Burney's on sabbatical, and I have nothing to report.
Great. All right. Well, with no further business before the Olympia City Council, we're adjourned.